and I always think in terms of decades because that's how we always define things, whether it be alternative or indie. You were a part of it, but much like Dylan, hovering around what was happening and a little outside of it.
Yeah, that's nice of you to say so. I mean, it's kind of different for him because he was such an important part of the decade he appeared in, whether he likes it or not, and I know he resents it, being seen as Mr. 1960s, but he irretrievably altered the course of music. And it's funny that the records he's made, the last few records, are hearkening back to a time before music was affected by Bob Dylan.
Right.
It's as if he's tried to sort of, turn the clock back to before he existed and make music to those rules. But of course, it's still him. Maybe he's just trying to infect the time before him as well as the time after him. I was, never dramatically part of anything at all. I've just kind of... I listened to a lot of good records when I was young, and in a way, I've just carried them with me. They've been my fuel and my ingredients, my soil, and I think I've passed what I felt was in those records on to other people, who they may have been influenced by me, or they may have just been influenced by the records I listened to. Maybe there's just a bunch of us who all have the same records in our collection. I don't know. It's highly likely. We're going to be opening for the Decemberists in a few weeks, who are very much our nieces and nephews. Colin Malloy and everyone. Colin was a big R.E.M. fan when he was into my stuff, and the Young Fresh Fellows and things. It's just we're just there like their uncles, really.
And you're going to be playing Radio City Music Hall with the Decemberists.
Well, it's great. It's really sweet of them to ask us too, and I'm actually planning to play. I want to actually just play Goodnight Oslo as a piece, as our set, if that's going to work. If we can just do it from beginning to end. I know normally that's really a horrible thing to do. I remember Elton John alienating his fans by playing the whole of Captain Fantastic and the Dirt Brown Cowboy or something. But the thing is that, most of those people won't ever have heard of us, so it doesn't really matter, or they will have they'll have seen us on YouTube, but, Decemberist fans will not, most of them have any of our records, so they'll just know of us as people that Colin listened to. So, I just thought it'd be a great thing to do, and Colin's on the album, so... Anyway, let's see. That's my plan. It seems like a nice thing to do.
Well, I don't think you can go wrong, really, because like I said at the beginning of this interview, I mean, it is a solid record, from one track to another, and
thank you.
Even the sequencing, you're welcome. Even the sequencing is brilliant on this record. And I know you say that there's not a lot of thought behind some of the things that you're doing, but, there seems to be, and this might be projection again on my part, but there seems to be some design here with this record, because it does take you on a little bit of a journey. And what I like about it is that, unlike so many albums today, you haven't cluttered up the CD with 29 tracks, of which 13 of them are lousy. You've put
no. Well,
a good solid record. There's even side 1 and side 2, it says here on the back of the CD.
Well, that's how albums were designed. Technology made albums that way, and I think I think that the CD struck the album a fatal blow, because it suddenly meant it could be 3 times as long, and it had no natural pause in the middle. You will remember the time when you'd get to the end of 20 minutes music, and you could either decide to flip the LP or play something else. So you could listen to side 1 of a XTC album and then listen to side 2 of a Violent Femmes record. Or,
right.
You didn't have to just listen to the whole thing, but exactly, the CD was a license for people not to make up their minds what to chuck off, and so you've got these indigestibly long tracks of music. I've done it myself. I remember one album coming in at 55 minutes, and that's death. You've got to edit, even if everything's just going to be broken down onto an iPod and served up in sort of unpredictable fragments. You've still got to present it as if it's a menu, And there wasn't much conscious thought in this record, but one thing I did have was the sequence of songs actually about 6 months before we finished mixing it. I sort of got a sequence of the songs, and then, we finished it. So it wasn't a matter of having all these finished songs and going, I wonder what would be a good track 3,
Right.
Those building blocks that are all conditional on each other. I was kind of lucky; it just seemed to fall into place. But it means the album was made, I finished it because the other guys were off, being R.E.M. again, with a clear idea of how it was going to flow, and so we could make the sound go like that. Let's have some trumpets on these tracks, and then let's move away and have the cello at the end.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about one segment of your recording career that is suspiciously AWOL, and that's the work you did on A&M Records. And I don't even know if A&M exists anymore, to be honest with you. But
nor do I.
Yeah. Do you know if anything's going to be done with those? You made several albums on that label, and they more or less disappeared.
Well, A&M was an independent, which was then swallowed by Polygram, which was then swallowed by Seagram's, which was then swallowed by Universal. And somewhere in a huge warehouse in Burbank, I would imagine, is the entire A&M catalog, probably inside the entire Polygram catalog, somewhere inside the entire Seagram's catalog, somewhere inside Universal, like a series of cubic Russian dolls, and there's a man sitting there with a sort of 35-watt light bulb and an old piece of parchment and one of those old editor's things over his eyes, those green things, and God knows he may even have a cigarette. You never know. No one will come close enough to know what he's got there. Little red eyes are peeping at him from the dark corners of the warehouse, and somewhere in that warehouse are those records. I don't have the rights to those records because those major label deals are done in perpetuity. So that's why they are not coming out again. I think even the stuff I did for Warner's in the 90s, some of that has been re-released, and I think some of it's available as a download.
Ah, I see. So
you can get something like Jewels for Sophia and Mossy Liquor, but not Moss Elixir or whatever. But they've just sublet. But the Universal, whoever it is, it's in their warehouse, in their fortress. So until the walls crumble, I don't think that stuff will be out. But as you can see from what we've done on Yep Rock, everything that I or we or have the rights to is available, and all the and hopefully the Soft Boys material will be actually re-released through Yep Rock in the next year or two. So there will be one last gargantuan splurge of product, and that'll be it. And then it'll be all there for the ravens and the sirens to pick at.
Well, in the meantime, the A&M collection can sit alongside the alien fetus in a jar, in the warehouse in Burbank. But I always ask people when I have them on, when I have musicians on, if they have a particular track that they'd like me to play at the end of the interview.
Oh, I think my favorite song is probably, if you've got time, it's actually Goodnight Oslo itself.
The last track.
Yeah.
We shall do it.
Oh, great.
Well, thanks again, Robyn. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I know it's late there, so...
not as late as it is somewhere else.
Right. Well, with that, good night, Oslo, and good night, Robyn.
Thank you. Good night, Ghosty.